I have been using Claude Code for over a year now, and this is my exact folder structure I have used to launch 3 paid apps. First is a web app, a 3D animation software, second is a Mac OS app, a Mac annotator, and third is an iOS app, an English speaking coach. And this is the exact folder structure that I have used to launch all 3 of them under a month. Then I also shared this folder structure to social media platforms, and it seems it is really resonating well with the audience. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can use this exact folder structure for your next project or application. You will find this GitHub repo inside my school community where you can download this Claude Code folder structure completely for free. Click on start free trial and you will find this post. Click on download, and now let's break down the whole folder and understand each section, files, everything. Plus, this folder structure has been shared by professional vibe coders, even the creator of Claude Code Boris Cherny in his viral Twitter threads, and even Anthropic team themselves. But keep in mind that there is no perfect Claude Code folder structure since every project is different and unique in its own way. But still, you should set up your Claude Code folder structure in this canonical file format to get the 10x developer output rather than just another normal chatbot. I am going to use my Instagram post so that you can side by side compare with your Claude Code folder structure. Starting with, we have our project. So right now I am inside my project, which is Tilted. To show you, this is the application, which is a 3D animation software. And I have used this folder structure to build all of my applications, starting with CLAUDE.md file, which is going to be brain or memory of your entire project. Now, if you're starting with a completely brand new project, you're not going to see anything inside your CLAUDE.md file as it is going to be blank. So in order to create your first CLAUDE.md file, type /init. That will automatically create CLAUDE.md file based on your project. You give it a goal, what use case that you are building with your project. Since I already have my CLAUDE.md file, it is just going to say, hey, I have noticed you already have a comprehensive CLAUDE.md file in place. Now let's break down how you should structure your CLAUDE.md file coming from Boris Cherny, the creator of Claude Code. But make sure that it is not overriding 200 lines. Otherwise, it is just going to ignore everything after 200 lines. Alright, first of all, it should start with the project name and the goal. So our project name is going to be Tilted, which is my application, and a short description what it does, which is 3D animation software or editor, and this is our domain. Then comes rules that Claude must follow every single time, and this is why we use Claude.md file. So let's say you open another session. Now it's not going to ask you what is the project name, what is the domain, because it will load this Claude.md file every single time when you start a new session, and that's why you don't have to re-explain your project every single time. Inside rules, it is definitely going to be different according to everyone's use case. So as this is a production ready app, my focus is more on the deployment and version control. That's why the first thing we have is Git and deployment. After that, we have code standards on how it should write the code. It should write robust production ready code from day one. It should use this icon library and not that Lucid icon library that you see in every other purple AI slop. These are our file location for all of our brand kit, how it should write comments, documentation, everything. Again, as I said, this is a production ready code. That's why my focus is more on the versatile deployment and version control. It should always provide direct links, analysis and stats, as well as our database. Next, coming up, tech stack. So we are done with the rules. So this whole section was inside rules until Supabase. And now comes the tech stack or tool stack that you're going to use inside your production ready app. Mine is more biased on the 3D animation video software side. That's why you're going to see tech stack of export video, 3D frameworks, etc. Moving forward comes your commands like build, dev, test, link, etc. that you want to perform every single time you push to production. After that, we have key files. So these are our securities and APIs, our SEO indexing file structure, state and core management. Then last but not least, important component of your Claude.md file is going to be the architecture of your project, how it should manage 3D animation or scenes, export pipeline or videos, and timeline for our video editor. Now comes small nitty-gritty details of your project. So basically monetization, how you are charging your product. So it's $79 one time, no subscription model. Then we have feature gating, which is free users get these features and pro users get all the features. Then environment variables. Obviously, I'm not going to reveal anything here, which is basically containing all of your environment variables for your hosting, deployment, version control, your database, your payments like Stripe, everything. Now to wrap up your Claude.md file, we are going to include all the routes and small MD files of your project. So here we have the Mac OS or Mac Store, since this tilted is also available on the Mac Store, then branding, social media contact, UI convention, and this is the main part, which is the documentation. Since we cannot fit everything inside Claude.md file, as we want to keep it below 200 lines, that's why we are going to create specific category.md file. Let's say we want to manage anything about database. That's why we will create Supabase setup.md file, so that whenever Claude Code is working around Supabase, it is going to fetch this Supabase setup.md file from our Claude.md file and get more context about database, authentication, migration workflow, and everything else. In a nutshell, Claude.md file is going to be brain of your application that contains all of your project rules, but make sure that it is less than 200 lines. Moving forward, we have CLAUDE.local.md file, which means that this file is going to be your machine taking node that is going to be present locally, never shared with anyone, as well as never shared to production. So you might be asking, what is the difference between Claude.md file and Claude.local.md file? See, Claude.md file is a share rulebook. It is going to be commit and share with your whole team, and every machine will follow the same rules. But Claude.local.md file is my private version. It is not going to be shared with anyone and ignored by Git. So you can consider this Claude.local.md file as your personal note taker for your project. To give you one example, Claude Code should always run our local host on port number 3000. Now this rule is specifically for me and nobody else in my team, or not for you. For example, you might be running your local host on port number 4000, 8000. It's totally dependable on your machine. But how I would like my Claude to run is locally on 3000 port. So that's local memory for me, and that's why I'm storing this specific information inside my Claude.local.md file and not in my Claude.md file, since this is going to be shared with the whole team and my team members' local port number might be different. That's why this rule is relevant, or this documentation is relevant to my machine only. In a similar fashion, this is my local Supabase password and username. So I'm using this. I don't want anyone else to be using this, even in my team. They should be having their own. So I will definitely not share or add this in main Claude.md file, but inside my local.md file. I hope it is clear now. Moving forward, we have .gitignore, which is the file that will include all of your environment variables, personal configurations, API keys, secrets, everything inside this file. And this file is not going to be touched by any of the AI coding agents. When you're going to say push, deploy, this is not going to be pushed to your GitHub. So all of your environment variables are safe with you. Even the file name is self-explanatory, .gitignore, which means that GitHub will ignore this file. So it will ignore all the local. For example, even our Claude.local.md file is not going to be pushed since it is a local file, and it will ignore all the .locals and secrets. So since our Claude.local.md file belongs to our git.ignore, it is not going to be pushed to production. Yes, you can see our Claude.local.md file, even our settings.local.json file. So we have at the last setting.local.json. Don't worry, I will explain what this file means at the end. Then we have our MCP servers or mcp.json file, and if you don't know what is MCP or Model Context Protocol, you definitely should, because it is the hottest thing under the sun right now, which is basically a server client-side architecture that allows your LLM or AI tools to connect with your external tools easily. To give you one simple example, here we have our Supabase, which is acting as an authentication and database for my application, and I want my LLM tools like Claude Code or any other AI tools to communicate with my Supabase directly inside chat. That's why we're going to need this MCP server. So I have set up my Supabase MCP server, provided my Supabase access token, and don't get any funny idea, I have stored all of my secret keys inside git.ignore. But yes, coming back to the point, all of these MCP servers will allow my Claude Code to access directly inside chat without me having to open, let's say, Supabase from here. Then I have to share screenshots, put that screenshots inside Claude Code, and then it will understand. Then again it will ask me for more screenshots, and that loop will continuously carry on. But by providing MCP servers, my Claude Code can directly talk with Supabase directly inside chat or window, and it can read, modify, and edit files as it needs. In my example, I have only shown you 3 examples, which is Supabase, Playwright MCP, and Stripe MCP. But definitely in a real production project, you're going to have dozens of MCP servers to make your Claude project MCP boosted. Now comes the meat of the sandwich, which is explaining or breaking down our Claude Code folder structure. But now you might be questioning why these 4 files are not inside Claude Code folder structure, because all of these 4 files should or have to live inside the root folder or root project, and that's why these 4 files are not inside your .claude folder structure. So if we close our .claude folder structure, here we have our 4 root files that should exist in root of any project. Now one thing to note here is if you open your folder in your finder, you will only see this CLAUDE.md file and CLAUDE.local.md file, only these two. And why not these 3? Don't worry, it is not problem with your folder. It is just Finder hiding these folders and not visible to you. So in order to show all of these files, you have to press Command, Shift and dot. And there we go. All of our dot folders and files will be visible to you. Now to hide it again, press again Command, Shift and dot. And they are gone. Not gone, basically Finder will automatically hide them. Now let's open .claude folder structure, which consists of all of these files that we have here. Awesome. Now let's start with the first thing inside our .claude folder, which is going to be hooks. Hooks are basically shell commands that is going to be executed inside Claude at a specific moment, even if Claude wants or does not wants. Hooks are basically law or rules that is going to be executed every single time at a shell level. So you might be asking, what is the difference between Claude.md file and hooks? See, understand that Claude.md file is just a documentation file. Claude might forget it to execute, but with hooks, it has to do it, it cannot override, and Claude does it automatically as they are running at a shell level. So even Claude code does not have any exception but to run hooks at every single time when it needs. Now I know the technical definition of hooks is hard to interpret, so let me give you visual examples or hooks that I have been using inside my project. For example, we have post edit format, pre-deploy guard and session start. So let's start with the session start. So whenever I will say hi inside my project, it will automatically trigger or fire this hook without me having to do anything. Let's say hi. And it comes back with a quick heads up, which is basically we are on the branch main and we have uncommitted change sitting in our working tree. And now let's open our session start.sh file. Here you can read that at start of every single session, when the first message goes, it should revert back with the answer or response on what branch we are working on and what was the last git commit in our project. Therefore, at start of every single session, Claude Code will understand which branch we are working on and what was the last git commit to understand, hey, this is where we left off in the last session. To prove my point of differentiation between hooks and Claude.md file, this session start.sh file was not inside my Claude.md file, or nothing mentioned of providing information about branch and last git commit to our Claude Code session. And that's why these hooks are going to perform automatically even if Claude Code wants or does not wants, because they are going to execute at shell level. If you still don't understand about hooks, don't worry, I promise with my second example, you will know more about hooks than 99% of the population. By far, just giving my personal perspective, I always make sure that I have different type of hooks set up inside my project. I don't even care that about Claude.md file in comparison of hooks. Hooks are my main and top priority for any project. Therefore, let me show you one example. Whenever I will say deploy our project to production now, it will trigger or fire our hook of pre-deploy guard. The name is even self-explanatory. Whenever I will deploy, it will have this pre-deploy guard running and make sure that everything is perfect or good to go. And it will automatically run all the tests and make sure that our production is working successfully in local. And as you can see, there is a failing test, and that's why it will immediately stop the deployment of my project. Otherwise, what would have happened is, if I'm not using my pre-deploy guard hook, it is going to pass that crash or bug version of my application and is going to deploy to my live website that has real users, and all of my users will be very angry on me since the app is not working. And that's why this type of hooks that is going to run every single time, no matter what is inside Claude.md file. And as you can see, it is saying I'm not deploying this as it is being blocked by our hook. So if we open our hook file, you will see that when Claude tries to deploy, run the test first, and if anything is broken, block the deploy straight away with a reason, and if it is green, let it through. And the whole goal of our hook is to avoid broken code to reach to our production by any chance. Now last but not least, hook in my example is going to be post edit format. For example, whenever Claude Code is making any change or modifying or editing any files, I want to make sure that it follows my lint and it should format my code in neat and clean way and never leave it dirty. That's why we have this post edit. As the name suggests, it is going to edit or format all of the code that it has written after it has done or make those changes. That's why it is named as post edit format hook. Here I cannot show you this hook visually as it is running in the background, but I hope you got my point. Obviously you can create any hook that you want. For example, we have post tool use, session start, session stop, session end, pre-compact hooks, and multiple of other hooks examples. I will make sure that to add all of the hook scenarios in the description, so make sure to check it out. Now comes commands, which are basically slash commands. They are right now in legacy, but it still works. Basically they are skills or preloaded workflows that you have to type just once. Let's say I will type sound effect and it will load this entire workflows and run it without me having to repeat the whole prompt again and again. For instance, we have our ship slash command that will build, lint and deploy in one go. So whenever I will type slash ship, it will automatically load this command and the whole workflow inside it, and it will automatically do npm run lint, npm build and npm test. It will run all of these commands automatically just by me having to enter this one single word. In a similar manner, we have skills, which are reusable workflows where you just save or create it once and trigger this via slash command. So instead of you having to retype the same multi-step instruction every single time, you can just call the skills by slash and the skill name, and Claude will run the whole process and procedure without you having to re-explain every single time. For instance, I have different skill of agent browser, Apple compliance, code review, remotion, SEO article writer. So I can, let's say, write one entire SEO article just by calling my SEO article writer. In a similar manner, if I want to run a whole Apple compliance test on my application, I can just type Apple compliance and it will carry out my multi-step workflow that I have saved once inside this skill, and it will run it entirely on Tilted Maxstore application. Let's go inside this skill and read what's inside it. So you can see this is the workflow. First it has to check the MS gating, then entitlement, verify billing, working demo, no private API keys, etc, etc. So instead of you having to re-enter this entire big prompt or multi-step workflow, you can just compress this in one single slash command and you can run it through all of your projects. Now note that skills are installed globally, which means that you can call any skill no matter what project you are in. For instance, I have one skill for IG caption or YouTube description, and it will write the description for my video. Just to give you one visual example, let me open one of my videos. Let's copy the transcript and give it here. So this is my Instagram script or Instagram reel, and what I want to do is run IG caption skill on it. So let's type slash IG caption. And now inside this skill, I have told it to give me 3 different variations in 3 different formats. So we have variation number A, B and C. From here I can just easily copy and paste it for my Instagram. In a similar manner, I have one for YouTube description. I'm just showcasing you an example that skills are installed globally and not is particular to any project. And this is the YouTube description from that video transcript. And in my YouTube videos, I want to structure in this specific format only. And that's why skills can be really useful in order to reuse the same workflow and get deterministic output. So let me open my YouTube channel. And even if you open any of my videos, you will see it is having the same structure of the YouTube transcription, where first of all we have our school community, then the title of the video, a brief description of the video, and then this listicle format. So that way I can make sure that all of my YouTube video descriptions are following the same formats and the things I want to include. Definitely I want to promote my products, so I will have them. And that's why skills can be really useful in order to get the deterministic output that you want. Then connect with me links. And lastly, we have chapters. Awesome. So I hope you got my point how you can use skills. Basically, skills are the best thing that has happened to Claude or Claude Code. And you can install dozens and thousands of skills available online and made by professionals so that you don't have to do anything. Just search for Claude Skill Marketplace. And this is the one I really love, which is Skills MP. That contains all the skills that you need. Awesome. So coming back to our point, skills are basically reusable workflows that you can trigger or fire with a single slash command. Now next we have agents, and this is where things start getting interesting. I have 3 agents. First is code reviewer, second is log analyzer, and third is researcher. Basically the use case of agent is to set out a goal and the agent will figure out on how to find it or solve it. For example, why we are using these sub agents? Because we want to preserve our main session context window limit. So all of these 3 agents are working in isolated and their own context window limit and their own environment. So they are just passing the summary to the main session and not every single step it took. That way your main session has everything it needs to know and preserving the main session context window limit. But enough theory, let me show you how sub agent works in reality. So whenever we want to do, let's say, any research, we will use our research agent where it will perform web fetch and synthesize its finding. Launch research agent to learn more about our competitors. Of tilt it. I will launch the research agent to investigate our competitors. Let me kick that off. As you can see, we have our dedicated agent and his whole job is to research our competitors. So if you open this, you will see the step-by-step guide on how it is going to perform and carry out the research and give a summary to our main agent. In a similar manner, you can have any specific sub-agents for your use case. Now one thing to note that all of these files and folders are completely dependent on your project. You don't have to follow my agents, you don't have to follow my skills. Feel free to create own according to your use case or project. But the goal of the project is for you to understand each and every single file inside your .claude folder and how they perform and how you can create or customize according to your use case. Then we have these 3 files, which is the output style, plugin and rules. Let's talk about output style. Let's close the agent one. Output style basically means how it should give me the output in form of response. So I don't want a big explanation. I don't want like great question. I just want straight, no fluff, cut to the chase answers. Never use dashes. No summaries at the end unless I ask specifically, and explanation should be in one line and non-obvious. Obviously, you can customize this output style according to your use case or your liking. I want very straight and simple answers, so I have customized my output style like this. Then we have plugins. In my example, I am using one plugin of Vercel that is going to help me with my deployment and production. Now you might be asking, and you should, what is the difference between plugins and skills? Well, a plugin is a bundle, which is an installable package that contains multiple skills, agents, hooks, commands, and MCP servers all at once. You can install plugins from the marketplace like you have an app with your app store and you get a whole pack of capabilities in just one go. For example, our Vercel plugin contains different bundle and releases commands all together. Whereas the skill is just one single workflow I have wrote. A plugin is a package someone has built which bundle of skills, agents and commands all together, so I just install one thing and get the whole set. So again, to understand the difference in just one line, skill is just one tool that you have made or installed and plugin is a whole toolbox that you have installed inside your projects. Even if you go to Claude Code or Cowork, you will see we have skills and then a separate plugin. So let's click on add plugins. Let's search for finance. Let's open that. It comes with 8 skills or agents and 7 external connectors that we can use inside this plugin. Therefore, in a similar manner, you can find different plugins for a use case. For example, we have one for code review, superpowers, front-end design plugin, context 7 for documentation, etc. etc. Now coming to the rules, which will help our Claude to understand the whole API route inside our application. And why we cannot include all of this inside our Claude.md file? Because it will make our documentation file bloated, and that's why we have these separate files. For example, Supabase.memory file, then stripe.md file, production.md file, all of these separate files, so that Claude.md file will only touch when it needs. In this API rule file, we have rate limiting, export authorization, Stripe webhook, never log request. So Claude Code will make sure that it follows all of these rules whenever it is making any modification or touching any API route. Then last but not least, we have settings.json file. So let's open that, which is basically your control panel for Claude Code. They are going to turn everything on and wire it together. For example, which model that you want to use, the permission of allow, deny, default mode, and hooks, which is going to be the important one inside your setting.json files. And in a similar manner, we have settings.local.json file, which is the same thing like CLAUDE.local.md file, which is going to be private, and my personal overrides that get never committed to GitHub. Without these files, none of my hook is going to fire or trigger. As well as you can allow and deny permissions as you like. So I never want my Claude code to automatically push, and that's why this permission will automatically deny that, and all of these permissions are allowed. Like MCP server of Supabase Playwright, it should automatically allow without it having to ask me or take any permission of mine. And there you go, you have your full .claude folder structure set up perfectly with different agents, hooks, commands, skills, plugins, whatever you need for your project. So you make sure that your Claude code is working like a 10x developer than just another normal chatbot. If you want this entire project folder structure, you will find a GitHub repo inside my school community completely for free, so make sure to grab it out. And if you want me to make more videos like this, drop a like, comment and subscribe for more.